I've been doing work, research and evaluation in the child welfare court system for a while now. And all of my efforts have been focused on trying to find out what practices are most effective in improving outcomes for children and families. When I first started the work, I learned really quickly that child welfare court system is unique. In most of the legal proceedings that you see, there's one big event and you're really looking backwards. Did something occur or not occur? But in child welfare, we have a series of events across the life of a case, a series of events that may take a year or more, and we're really looking forward, trying to make the best decisions about where this child is going to end up, how we're going to get the child to permanency and to safety. For the courts, this series of events often serves as an oversight capacity, a way to make those required legal findings on the record. For parents, it might be just another mandatory event in the life of their case, something else that they have to do to comply. But what if that could be something more for parents? What if it could actually be something meaningful for them? Something that helped engage them in the process throughout the life of the case. We have this ongoing opportunity to engage them. What if we could do that? And that's how I got started doing a lot of this quality work. And when I do the work, I always like to start with the parent's perspective. Can you think about a time in your life when you were feeling completely overwhelmed and confused, and you still had to make an important decision? Let me tell you about that experience for me. This is my Izzy. She's cute, right? I got her when she was 3 months old. If you can't tell already, I'm a dog person. I've had dogs for 15 years, mostly Cocker Spaniels. I just love them. Do we have any other dog people in the audience?
Yeah.
All right, so you guys will understand. When Izzy was about 9 years old, she developed this cough, kind of a persistent cough, and I took her into the vet. And I wasn't thinking that much about it because it's wintertime and it's a cough. I brought her in and the vet checked her out, and then she started throwing out this medical terminology like grade 5 heart murmur and congestive heart failure and drugs like furosemide and vetmedin. And then she was gone. And all I heard was that my dog is dying. See, I heard and I understood all the words that she said, but I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know what they meant for Izzy. How long does she have? What's her quality of life going to look like? Is she in any pain? And I didn't know what they meant for me. As her caretaker, what do I need to do differently to best support her? And I think about the parents that we work with coming into the court system. Parents who may have just experienced the trauma of having their child physically removed from their custody. Parents who might have other challenges that brought them into the system. And they come into court, which is already an intimidating process for anyone who's there. And then people talk at them and about them, but rarely to them in the system. And they use legal terminology and jargon and acronyms that all the professionals understand, but the parents may not. And I wonder who's helping them understand what this means for their child and for them. It's easy to assume that someone's doing this outside of court. Oh, the agency will take care of it. The parent's attorney will take care of it. But we don't know that that's happening. And in court, through discussion, we actually have a chance to ensure that someone's bringing them into that and making sure they understand. And that's one of the areas that we've looked at with quality hearings, is discussion in court. We did a study recently where we looked at discussion, the breadth of discussion of relevant topics. And when I say relevant, I mean relative resources, placement, safety of the child, these important things to the family at the first hearing on the case. And what we found was, when there was just a little discussion at those first hearings, 30% of our cases reunified. So when we had a little bit of discussion, 30%. When we had a lot of discussion, this more robust conversation at the very first hearing on the case, the number changed to 82%. Why do you think that is? I've got a few theories. One, we know already from the procedural justice literature that if people feel like they're treated with respect, and they have a voice in the process, and they understand what's going on, that they're more likely to feel like the system is fair. And if they think it's fair, they're more likely to comply. And in child welfare, that means showing up when they're supposed to be there and following their case plan. And we saw that in the data. We saw that the families who were at the hearing where there was high discussion at the beginning were more likely to show up at subsequent hearings. We engaged them in this process. So we know from the procedural justice literature that could be a component, but I like to think about it as a psychologist from basic human interactions. Think about in your life, the last time you were at a social event, some kind of networking opportunity. How would it be for you if someone came up to you and just started talking? They're talking about something you have no idea really what they're talking about, and they just keep talking at you. You never get a chance to speak, and then they leave. How satisfying of an experience is that for you? How likely are you to seek them out to continue that conversation? Not very likely. The reality is, as part of communication, we like to have a voice. We like to ask questions. We like to understand what's going on. We want to be part of that process. It's not a conversation if one person is talking at you. And the same holds true for our hearings with our parents. Now, I've seen this in the research, but I've also experienced it firsthand. I told you about my vet experience with my Izzy, and I changed vets after that. I wanted someone who would talk to me. My new vet, she does two things differently, two small but profound things differently in our interaction together. And the first thing that she does is she actually has a discussion with me. She comes in, explains to me what's going on with Izzy in a way that I completely understand, and then talks through the options. Here's what you can do. She'll give me advice on what she would do based on her years of experience working with similar cases, but she always gives me the choice of what I want to do. So we have a discussion at every appointment about Izzy. And the second thing she does is at the end of every appointment, she says, "Do you have any other questions or concerns about Izzy that you'd like to address?" Simple, basic, but an opportunity for me to ask those questions so that when she said something that's overwhelmed me or been confusing, I can get clarification. I can make sure that I know what I need to do. I can make sure that I know what this means for me. Now, I've seen this done really well in the court system as well. It's sometimes a challenge to think about how do we implement this, or how would you do something different in practice? And you can do this in such small ways. Think about something small in your process, like at the end of the hearing, when you set the next hearing on the record, when you set that next date. Now, I observe court all over the country. I've sat in hundreds of hearings, and I've seen some really good practice and some less good practice, but we'll take this one example. I've sat in a court before where they got to the point of the day where they were setting the next hearing, and the judge threw out a date. And then he started talking to the professionals, the attorneys, the agency. Does the state work for you? No, I have a trial. Does the state work for you? No, I'm out of town. They go back and forth and spend several minutes discussing this. And they come up with a date. And then Dad raises his hand and says, "Judge, I have to work that day." And the judge says, "I don't care. This is important. You need to be here. You're just going to have to get off work." Think about the message that sends to Dad when it can be done so much better. For example, at another jurisdiction I sat in, the judge did a great job with this piece of the hearing in particular. He looked at his paper and he said, "Hey Dad, I see that," he's called him by name, just not using names. "I see that you work at this factory. Are they still doing 410s there? Okay. Are you on day shift or night shift this week? Okay. Well, would mornings or afternoons work better for you?" That was it. It's a small way to engage Dad in the process, to give him a voice, to give him a choice as part of this process. It's an opportunity for him to be able to contribute and feel like he's part of the process, which we know is important. Discussion also serves another purpose, if you think about it. Discussion can bring you new information that's current, and perspectives that you may not have from the reports that you've gotten. I sat in a hearing one time with a youth that was present, and the judge was talking to the youth about visitation. How's visitation going with mom? And they talked about that for a little while, and then the youth asked, when am I going to get to see my brother? And it turns out he hadn't seen his brother in months, and no one was really clear why. There was some sort of documentation that there was a concern that didn't get followed up, and now he wasn't seeing his brother. But if the youth hadn't brought that up to court, who would? Anyone in the courtroom can bring that up, can bring up these important discussion pieces. And I think for most of us, we don't realize how important those little engagement and discussion are, maybe until later. And for me, I didn't realize it, how significant it was for me personally until last December. So last December, I lost my Izzy. And it was very tough. It's always tough when you lose a dog. It's always tough. But when she died, I actually felt comfortable and confident that I had given her the happiest, healthiest life that I could have given her, and that I'd made the best decisions about her well-being. And I felt that way because I had a professional that had helped me make those decisions, that had brought me into a decision-making process and empowered me to make those decisions for myself. And that's what court professionals can do for our families. They can be that person that brings them in, that shares information, that encourages discussion, that ensures that they understand what's going on in their hearing and what it means for them and for their children. That professional can be the one that empowers our families to make the best decisions for their children so that the child can be safe and ultimately, hopefully, so that they don't come back into our system and can move forward. Thank you.